So we learned that the reason why you can't learn from Soviv that carbon oil you spritz on all four chronos is because one, we know oil can only be the diameter oil can only be spritzed because Yosy, and there's no Yosy by one because there's a Ritzur that Yosy from Shevet Yehuda into Shevet Binyamin, and therefore the side of the Mizbeach that's on the east and the side of the Mizbeach on the south did not have a Yosy. So Lefichach Zocha Binyamin the Atzadik Benasu Ushpischa Nakadosh Baruch Hu Shnemar V'Ikseif Shachri. Meisvei, the Gemara has a kasha on what? On whether or not it's true that there was no Yisait. It says Oila Saif, Ketzat. How did they process the Oila Saif? So it says Ketzat Inasis. Umavdil, the Kohen would make Malika on the bird and totally separate the head from the shoulders, both Simonim. And the Brisa says that all this took place at the Keren Deroimis Mizrachis, the southeast Keren, the southeast corner, which is where we're stating there was no Yisait. Umimatza Dama al Keren Mizbeach, and then after the dam spritzed out, he would squeeze out the rest of the dam on the wall of the Mizbeach. Frank the Gemara, the Amrit lo haya lo Yisait. If you're telling me there was no Yisai there, so what's going on when the Malika happened? When the Malika happened, the dam should spritz out on the floor. The Amit Lahayla Yisai Ba'avir Ba'alma Hudakavid, as Rashi asks, Bitmiya, could you tell me that it's time just spritzed out on the floor? The kasha is because it's assumed that when there's any blood there's always going to be some type of a mizbeach to contain it. Tosfos, the long Tosfos here, doesn't like Rashi's pshat. Tosfos says that it's referring to the Shiore Adam, which has to be on the Yesod, and here it's going to fall on the ground. Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak, Emar Kach Hisnu. Maybe although the ground belonged to Shevet Judah, but maybe the airspace belonged to Binyamin. Ema Kach Hisnu Avira de Binyamin and Kaka de Yehuda. So what do you mean? It's still midair. So Zokt Rashi, you have to learn that they built a little platform that stuck out of the side of the Mizbeach above the ground, more than 3 tefachim above the ground, which was in the airspace of Binyamin, and there the dam would have landed on the Mizbeach. And there's a little picture of what it looked like, a little diagram of what it looked like here in my Gemara, which is right over here. So literally at the Keren Deroimis Mizrachis, they built a little, like a porch almost, a little porch that stuck out. So when he's spritzing, when he's making Malika, it will drip down and it'll land on a mid-air Yisoid, so to speak. But that had the din, not of a Yisoid, it had the din of the wall. I'm sorry?
The original picture had the Yisoid in both corners, even though it was.
Yeah, the northwest, the northeast, and the southwest.
Where are we talking about?
The southeast. So when he comes up the ramp, immediately to the right. There was no Yisoid. To the left, there was a Yisoid. I'm sorry?
Southeast you're talking?
Southeast, yeah. Southeast is Yehuda territory. That's right. So it's interesting that even though Yehuda had a land, the air rights still belonged to Binyamin.
So things that we never knew were on the land. Those mini ramps to the ramp.
I mean, that I remember seeing, but this little protrusion, and I shouldn't say I never heard of it before because we have learned Zevachim before, but I never heard of it before. Hey. Okay, sag's going weiter. My loy havelu yisoid. What does it mean exactly that there was no yisoid? Does it literally mean there was no yisoid? Rav Omer Bevinian. Yeah, there was literally no yisoid, as we saw in the picture. Levi Omer no. Bedomim. It just means yisoid haya al pnei kol mizbeach. Avalei nostin domim bechol keshol Yehuda. So there was a yisoid, but that it means that we say that there was no Yisod, we just mean that there was no mitzvah to put dam in any other place than what belonged to Binyamin. So there was physically a Yisod there, but it was not used for a matnas dam. Okay, Zog to Gemara, Rav Mitargim Bachsante Yispani Midbacha. Rav understood it literally. In the Achsanya, only in the land of Levi will a Mizbech be built. But Levi Mitargim Bachsante Yisavne Mikdasha, meaning Mokim Mekudush Ludamim. It doesn't mean the Mizbech, it means the Mokim Kedusha. So Rav says, Bachsante Yas the Yispani Midbacha. The Mizbech will only be built in Binyamin's Chelek. But Levi says the Kedusha will only be in Levi's Chelek, meaning it's not Mekudesh Ladam. But there really was a physical Yisoid over there. Tashma, HaYisoid HaYu Mahalach Al Pnei Kol HaTzafain V'Al Pnei Kol HaMayriv. The entire north side of the Mizbech had a Yisoid. The entire west side of the Mizbech had a Yisoid. And Oichel Bedarim Amo Achas, and on the south side, so when it comes down the west side of the Mizbech and turns to the south, it turns to the south one Amma, and over Mizrach Amo Achas, and the north side of the Mizbech, when it goes over to the east, it also turns by one Amma, which is how we visualize, which is the picture that we saw. It wraps around those two chronos as well. Okay, Zog to Gemara. So you see clearly that Rashi says, you see right over here, so it's Kashal Levi, it's mashma that there's physically no Yisoid on the most of the eastern side and most of the southern side. So we know it doesn't mean there was no Yosy there. It means the functional part of the Yosy, where dam was allowed to be spritzed, only wrapped around to that side. Tashma, the Mizbech was at its base 32 amas by 32 amas. Okay, Zok to Gemara, if you're going to tell me that there's a full side missing, then it's 31 by 31. When we're talking about when you're looking from the perspective that has the Yisoid, it was 32 by 32. So if you're looking at it from the northwest corner, there you see a full Yisoid going along the north end, and you see a full Yisoid going along the west end. Tashma, Nimtza Pereach Ama al Yisoid Va'ama al Soivid. We know that the floor of the Mizbech, we just said, was a 32 amas square. We know that the kevish, the ramp, was 32 amas. So if I had to ask what was the total length of the ramp and the Mizbech, logic would dictate 32 plus 32 was 64. But that's not true. It's only 62. Zok to Gemara, Zok to Brisa. I'm not talking about the hypotenuse. I'm talking about the flat side. The distance that I reached. So Zok to Gemara, Nimta Pereach Amal Yisoid Amal Soivid. The Mizbeach didn't stop where the Yisoid ended. The Mizbeach, that would be 2 amas away from the top of the Mizbeach. He'd literally have to jump 2 amas to get to the Mizbeach. So the Mizbeach had a contour at the bottom, Amma by Amma, so it rested over the Yisoid, and had another contour to rest over the Soivid. So therefore, the top of the Mizbeach was flush with the top of the Kevish. So there was an overlap of 2 amas. That means there was obviously a Yisoid on the south side. Otherwise, what's that overlap for? So tomorrow, no, Ema Kineged. I'm sorry?
I counted twice. If the whole Kevish was 32, that's including the side and the center. Right? Because it's from the top, right here.
That's right. It was 32 plus 30. So it's only really 32 plus 30, because 2 amas in the Mizbeach is used up.
Right.
So it would be total 62. Right. Not 64. So Zok Gemara, maybe what it means, Ema Keneged Ama Yisoid V'ad Ama Soivid. It doesn't literally mean V'al Ama Soivid. It means, yeah, it goes over the Ama Soivid, but it's Keneged Ama Yisoid, even though there's no Ama Yisoid over there. So again, you don't have a raya, yes or no, that there was a Yosy.
Again, in that corner, there was one little bit.
But the kevish doesn't. But the kevish maybe didn't reach past it. Yeah. Dokmar Tashma, the Tani Levi. Levi said, "Keitzad boinin es hamizbeach." How did they build the mizbeach? So they made forms. They took a form, maybe malbein, shu shloishim ushtayim or shloishim ushtayim. They built a wooden form that was 32 by 32. The goyvayam, maybe what did they fill it with? Chuluke avonim, small stones, mefulamois, I guess chopped stones, I believe. But that to be wet, Rashi says they adhere to each other better. Ben gedolos, ben ketanos, so maybe sid, vikunya, vizefes, which are all building materials that will allow them to adhere to each other. This was like the first incidence of mixing concrete. There was a mixture that was supposed to dry into a solid stone platform. And he poured it. This was the footprint of the Yosy. Then you make another mold that's three out. That's how many amasai? It's 5 amasai. And you do the same thing. You fill it again with the same chemical. And go so on and so forth. Then you make a third level, which is from the side of it up, which again is an amma smaller all the way around. Which is the dimensions of the top surface of the mizbeach, the goyva gimel amis, and again the maybe chaluke. Correct the Gemara, v'hu mokam hamarach. I'm sorry, and that's going to be the mokam hamarach, which is the top of the mizbeach. The chayzer umevi malvein. Then you bring a series of forms, one for each of the 4 kranos. So amal amma. Maybe chalukavanim ufulamois ben gedolos ben getanos maybe zefes akunya umamacha b'shoifek b'zehu keren v'chein l'chol keren v'keren. So it's telling you clearly they poured a Yosy of 32 by 32. So it's black and white. It was full of concrete. It was inside the form. So how could you say it's missing 2 sides of the Yosy? If you're going to say that after they poured it, then they cut it with a concrete saw, and they cut off one amma of the Yosy on the south side and one amma of the Yosy on the east side. The guy is like, it can't be avodim shleimus ksiv. It has to be avodim shleimus, which Rashi says means sheyeh chalak. They have to be perfectly smooth. V'loy pegimos pegimos. V'yav shelister liyos chalaka. They didn't have beautiful diamond tipped saws in those days to get a perfect saw cut on concrete. They had to chisel, so it definitely wouldn't look smooth. So that would not have been acceptable in those days. Zok to Gemara, you're right. Maybe the machas meaning me to say the chocolate. Maybe maybe they had a border directly around just that extra amma that they were able to take it out. It's a mashma from the way I understand it. It was filled with wood. One amma of the form was filled up with wood, and then they just took it out. That's how I understood Rashi. But Rashi can say black and white. Does the article say how they did it?
They filled it with something solid in its place. Yeah.
And then they took it out.
They
put a spacer in. So why would they make the form that big in the first place? I don't understand why. Then make the form smaller.
Easy. Making...
I hear. Okay. The Eloi Temach, if you're not going to learn like that, I have a problem with the Karnais. Hodamar of Karna Avonim Shel Karnais. Chalulei saw you. The Karnais weren't a solid block. It was just an outside form, but there was hollow inside. Dichsiv Umaloi Kemizrak Kizaviyos Mizbeach. It was full like a mizrach, the Zaviyos Mizbeach, meaning it was hollow. It was a container. How did that happen? They filled it. Gemara Hakanami Avonim Shleimos Amarach. Man el demachas midi mitusei v'shakalei. Hakanami demachas midi mitusei v'shakalei. And Hakanami, that was the form, but they had it filled with something else. Dorish Rava, my dichsiv, it says in the pasuk, Vayelech David and Shmuel. David and Shmuel went. V'yeshu b'novois barama, and they sat in Novis barama. What business did they have sitting and drinking coffee in Novis barama? B'chima'in Novis etzel rama. And what does Novis have to do with Rama? They weren't in the same place. Ella, you know what they were doing? Ella show you Yoshvim barama. They were sitting in the city of Rama. But Oiskin, what were they talking about? B'noyai shel oilam. They were talking about the location of where the Beis Hamikdash was to be built. They knew that there was a Beis Hamikdash going to be built, but HaKadosh Baruch had not yet identified precisely where the site would be, and they were sitting to figure out where. Amri, they said, it says in the pasuk, "V'kamto v'alisa l'mokim." Obviously, the Beis Hamikdash is high up because you got to go up to it. And we know Eretz Yisrael gavoy v'kol haratzos. So lo havi yadi duchta. Hey, they didn't know exactly which highland the Torah wanted, the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted the Beis Hamikdash to be built. So what did they do? I see Sefer Yeshua, and they looked into the Sefer Yeshua. When the Torah is describing the border between Yehuda and Binyamin, and we know Yehuda and Binyamin was as follows: Yehuda's territory ran from the east of Eretz Yisrael, from the Jordan, all the way to the west of Eretz Yisrael to the Mediterranean. Directly above Yehuda, only on the east side, from the Jordan River to halfway across, is Binyamin, and then the other half is some other Shevet, right? Now, when the Torah starting from east is talking about the border of Yehuda, it's not a straight line. It gradually moves north. So it says v'Allah v'Allah. It says there's a straight piece of land of v'Allah. It talks about going up, and then when it hits the center, center of the property of Yehuda, the Torah is moving now further west. The Torah says, and it's going down. So clearly, until the halfway point, it was going up, and then it was going down again. So Nochmal says in the pasuk, "Shiva Yored v'Allah Hagvul V'Tar Hagvul B'Shevet Binyamin." So it says the Yored v'Allah Gvul, when it's talking about the Gvul in between Yehuda and Binyamin, it talks about it going up, and it's a little bit flat, and then it goes back down. So you see, it rose up to the pinnacle where it was flat, and then it started going down again. So Nachal says the yard balak vol v'tar vol b'shev v'yamin v'alok siv, the yard like siv. So going towards the center, you're going up. It doesn't say going down. Okay, and by Shevet Binyamin, when it's talking about going towards Yehuda, it talks about going down. So you see clearly that at that point, which is the center, which is where Yerushalayim is, that's the high point. Hami Shmamina, they came to the conclusion from the Pesukim of Yeshua that Hacha Hu Mekayma, this must be the high land that the Torah is referring to. So Savar Lemivnaya Ba'ain Itam, the Madli, that's the highest point. Ain Itam is even taller than Harabayis. Amri said no, because Nitzi Bay Khalil, it's not going to be good if we make it so high, because Rashi says, let's lower it a little bit. Don't make it at the top. You know why? It will be in between the shoulders. Your shoulders aren't the tallest part of your body. Your head is. So Vais the Reis is supposed to be a little bit lower than the highest point. So Nitzibe Klil. Another reason is Gemiri, they knew this Sanhedrin bechalka Yehuda. They knew the Sanhedrin, the Machayik Yehuda, the Sanhedrin would always be in Shevet Yehuda. And we know Shechina bechalka the Binyamin. We know that Shechina was in the Chelik of Binyamin. Bimadlina on lay, if you would put it in Einitim, which is deeper into the territory of Binyamin, not right on the border, then Mispal Tuba, then the Sanhedrin would be distanced away from the Makam Mikdash, and that wasn't good. So Mutav, the Netzebe Porta, let's keep it a little lower off the top, the highest area, and then it could be right adjacent to where the Sanhedrin will be. The fact that David HaMelech was able to pinpoint the location of the Beis Hamikdash correctly, that killed David and ate him up. Like he said, "Ki kinas beisecha achalasni." My kin of you knowing where the Beis Hamikdash was ate me up alive. Uksiv zechar Hashem leDavid eskol unusoi asher nishbal Hashem. Hashem remembered for David all his unusoi that he swore. What did he swear to Hashem? What was his pain that he swore to Hashem? He said, "How can I go puff in my nice palace on my nice linen in my nice bed when there's no makam ashra shechina? Im avay ba'oil beisi. If I'll come into my house, im eten sheina la'enai." That was the Doeg was jealous of. Hine Shmanua, you know where we heard? Befrasa mitzanua b'steyar. So what does that mean? Befrasa zeh Yeshua. I found it in Efrasa. I found it in Sefer Yeshua, who comes from the Kasim Ephraim. Mitzanua b'steyar. That's referring to the location of the Shevet Binyamin. The Chesiv Binyamin Sefer Yisrael. Sagt mal weiter. Zivchei Shamei Tzibur Vashameis Elu Neshameis Ashem Zelos Ashem Iles Ashem Shivcha Charuva Ashem Noz Ashem Mitzayra, which are all Ashem Vadais, and then there's the category of Ashem Toli. If you're not sure if you were over a Chayve creases or not, Shechitasam Batzavain Shkosh Kodashim, Vikibol Dom Bechlo Shors Batzofine, Vidom and Ton Shtem Matona Shein Arba, Vidnecholin Lefnim in Akloyim, and it's eaten only in the Azor. He said that's one of the main litmus tests of Kodesh Kodashim. L'zichrei kuna to male kahanim b'chol machal prepared in any fashion they want. L'yom v'layla for one day and the night following. At chatzois, which is a chomer d'Rabbanon, to keep somebody away from being over on eating achilas noiser. Okay, Baruch Hashem. Even though I puffed in, we were still zoiche to finish the daf, and so you're gonna ask me. So what were you?